We're here now. All right. Hey, I'm here joined by Brett Jane, who defeated me when we played week one. But I'm glad to be here doing commentary on the Anuraag Das versus Patrick Dickmann match. Uh, Anuraag, in typical fashion, is playing a Jeskai style control deck, and Patrick Dickmann is playing the hybrid show and tell sneak omniscience deck popularized by Jonathan Angelescu, aka JPA 93 on Magic Online.
Mm-hmm. So, what is different about Anuraag's list other than the lack of top from like old miracles? It doesn't look like he's playing any actual miracles, right? It's got four J's. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he has any miracles. I think he decided those cards were not great anymore. Yeah. But he does have a mini Stoneforge package, 2 Stoneforges and 1 Batterskull to try to attrition out creature decks with.
That's interesting. Yeah, he doesn't have any additional equipment in the board either. No GTAs or anything like that. That's interesting. I guess it makes sense. He doesn't actually have a ton of creatures to put it on.
Yeah. This is more of a Cuneo style, like draw go, pure control deck, which I think is the most common style of deck that Anuraag is familiar with. Okay. I don't think he's played sort of the Jeskai Stoneblade, like heavy creature builds that don't have, like his deck is a control deck. Like there's 3 counterspell, 2 spell snare, the full set of snapcasters, and the full set of forces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's definitely all in on the control plan, which I'm not sure how well is going to line up, or how well that's going to line up against the sneak and show deck. I guess there's no like Boseiju or anything. There are defense grids post board for Dickmann, so that's going to be pretty good against like the random counter spells like Force of Will, actual counter spells, stuff like that.
No Boseiju, I think, makes the matchup a lot worse for Dickmann because all the blasts and everything will be extremely good post board, and even something like Aethersworn Canonist, which doesn't look very good on the surface, is actually quite good. The reason being, you cannot defend your own bombs with counterspell backup once the Canonist is in play.
Yeah, and Anuraag has 3 Canonists in the board, so it's 7 total Canonists that we've seen these past 2 games against Dickmann, which is quite a few. Definitely more than I expected to see. Yeah, looks like we're going to be getting to the game shortly, though. Which is cool. All right, what do the hands look like? Dickmann's hand, I think you got to snap mulligan that. Doesn't really do anything.
That's not a hand I would want to consider keeping whatsoever.
But Anuraag's hand seems like fine. Who's on the play here? It's definitely relevant, right? Like if Anuraag could just get like a turn 2 Stoneforge and just try to like get the return 3 Batterskull, like maybe that's a plan. He's got the 1 Force of Will protection.
Yeah, Dickmann also with the awkward hand that you probably are supposed to keep because a single Volcanic Island turns on the hand, and you also know since deck lists are public, Anuraag has no wasteland type effects, so a blue-red source is completely safe.
Even then, though, like you have to draw your blue source prior to playing any of the city returns, right?
Yeah, but with a scry on the play, I think you're supposed to keep this.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I would probably personally, yeah. And Dickmann mulls and finds another awkward one. Sneak and Show can definitely, like, the pieces of Sneak and Show don't actually work especially well on their own at all. Like, you got your huge fatties and Show and Tells, and if you have one and not the other, your hands look pretty bad.
Yeah, so if you compare this hand to the last one, the only thing that was missing from the previous hand was a blue-red source, but now you're missing the sneak/show component of the deck, which is far less common than the blue-red land component of the deck. He did scry into a Brainstorm, which I think makes his hand actually quite reasonable.
Yeah, it makes it much better. Just a little bit of selection. Get rid of some of those Lotus Petals, find some actual mana sources, maybe. Yeah, Anuraag kept his 7. Just led on the land and pass.
Yeah, so Dickmann Brainstorms here. Unfortunately, just finds a bunch of mana. He's going to be glad to shuffle all of that away, I think.
Do you put 2 lands back or a land in a Lotus Petal?
My gut tells me you put 2 lands back. The reason being, if you somehow draw another cantrip and draw Sneak Attack, you're able to activate it multiple times in one turn.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Just gives him more options, more fast mana. It's always nice. And
It's
given
also,
that he has...
what he's doing here is putting one pedal back, which I think is also reasonable. It's unlikely you're actually going to need both. And I guess he's foreseeing a scenario where he wants to cast multiple 4-mana bombs.
Yeah. And this game should go long, so having like extra actual lands is nice. And he gets to keep the shuffle effect, which is nice also because I'm pretty sure you have to shuffle away like Volcanic Island plus a fetch land there if you put 2 lands back. So
Yeah.
keeping the extra fetches for Ponder, Brainstorm for later uses, definitely nice.
Yep. Supreme Verdict from Anuraag is like the worst draw in the deck.
Yeah, especially going. It pitches to forest, right? So it could be worse, I guess.
Yeah, the only scenario where a Verdict is good is when you Verdict away an Emrakul that's been aggressively showed in.
Mm-hmm. Which probably doesn't have to happen very often. Because it's not
I think
like
in this matchup I would try to avoid it if possible.
Yeah. It's not like Anuraag can really like present much of a clock, so under no circumstance do I think Dickman's going to be like his back against the wall has to like his only option being able to put into play the Emrakul and show and tell.
So Dickmann just drew a force. He's still not really close to piecing anything together, unfortunately. Whereas Anuraag has managed to find a Barrow Skull with Stoneforge, which means not next turn, but the turn after he can start attacking for 5 per turn. But that's still an extremely slow clock. I mean, it's turn 7-ish kill. That's plenty of time for things to go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Dickman's like 1 or 2 draws away from just being able to put like an Emrakul into play. So,
and also these Snapcasters have found nothing to flashback.
Nothing like that. Just to be a little bit about them now. No, if Anuraag was to find like Counterspell, that'd actually be pretty sick because he would have Force Will plus Counterspell backup, and then after that have Snapcaster Counterspell.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty close to locking it up, probably.
Spell Pierce is actually an okay draw because maybe you get Anuraag to tap low or something.
Yeah, it's definitely not the worst draw, but I think Dickmann would have definitely preferred to see like Brainstorm, Ponder, anything to just give him some card selection as opposed to the Spell Pierce, which isn't actually furthering his game plan at this point.
Right. But yeah, Dickmann really wants to find another cantrip.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, he would also be okay with a sneak attack or a show and tell, I suspect, by this point.
Yeah, Dickmann definitely has a lot of live draws, but he also has a lot of like awkward draws, like the 6 Emrakul Gristlebrand.
Yeah, I mean that's the downside to playing a deck that has like 6 giant monsters in it, right? Absolutely. Sometimes you draw them.
Yeah. You want to draw like one of them typically, but past that.
Sometimes you want to draw 2 so you can activate Sneak twice and deal your opponent 22 damage.
Sure.
So the interesting question is Anuraag going to run out Jace here?
I don't really see the downside. Like Spell Pierce, not necessarily even the Spell Pierce answering the Jace, but like Spell Pierce answering the Force of Will would be like kind of awkward. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting that he doesn't run out the Jace.
I think it's also a matter of bluffing, I think.
Sure,
just, like, representing strength.
Yeah.
Interestingly, if Anuraag flashes in Snapcaster, that reduces the clock by a turn.
Yeah.
Because it's 7 plus 7, which is extremely relevant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cutting Dickmann down to 1 turn of top decking as opposed to 2 is exactly where you want to be.
Definitely. Which is almost certainly a reason that he didn't run out the Jace then also. It's because he planned to
exactly. Yeah. The old Ambush Viper from Innistrad.
Yeah.
Blue Ambush Viper, right?
Who needs some flashback spells? We can just kill him. It seems fine, right?
I mean, yeah.
All right. So Dickmann drew the Omniscience, not really doing a lot. So he's got 1 draw step, though like a show and tell is good enough, almost. Well, no, it would not be good enough because he could just like...
show and tell...
He can't draw with the Gristlebrand.
So the problem with show and tell is he's going to put in Gristlebrand and not be able to activate it.
Yeah.
So here's what's going to happen. Suppose he draws show and tell, Lotus Petal, tap 2 lands, cast show, be at 7. Like you can't activate it.
I think like sneak attack and maybe just like pass and hope to like sneak in the Gristlebrand blocker.
Yeah, that sort of works. Yeah, we need to draw sneak.
Yeah.
To even have a chance.
Yeah. He doesn't even just necessarily off the sneak attack draw.
Yeah, it's not deterministically good. We're gonna get 7 random cards off of a defensive sneak attack activation.
Even then, you wouldn't get any cards, right? Because you have to gain the life. Oh no, because it would live.
No, you should. If
Yeah,
that happens, I think Dickmann has to block Snapcaster.
Yeah.
So
Make sure.
if you block Germ, you know what happens? He just returns Batterskull.
Absolutely. But it looks like Dickmann drew a Scalding Tarn, and that's
Yeah. The deck did not treat Dickmann very well right there.
He's had some somewhat awkward draws the past 2 matches. So see what he can do in these next 2 games. So what were you looking at for sideboards? The Blood Moon's probably not coming in for Dickmann. Defense Grid definitely. All the counter spells seem good. Plus, you're strong to be able to protect his stuff.
So we should look at what Anuraag is going to bring in first. All of the white cards in this matchup are pretty terrible.
Sure. I think Stoneforge is fine.
Yeah.
Like, be able to present you kind of like need to do that.
Yeah, the way Anuraag's deck is configured, he doesn't really have a good clock.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, without the
he actually has to cast Stoneforge to get a reasonable clock going. He
Which is unfortunate, but it's only 2 mana, so it's not the biggest investment.
Yeah. If I were Anuraag, I think I would look towards the Canoness, maybe the Disenchant, the Pyroblast, and Flusterstorms, which is a total of 10 cards. And on the on the right side, that's 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I guess Basic Plains is kind of bad if you expect him not to bring in Blood Moon.
Which I think you can pretty safely assume that he's not bringing in Blood Moon here.
I don't know. Sometimes it is like...
Sometimes you can get him, but like... The games where it's just like really bad and they happen to fetch up like 2 islands and a plains, like... I don't know. Definitely looks pretty bad. Yeah, but the spell center are kind of interesting because these players have the deck lists, and I'm sure Anuraag is aware of how like scary Defense Grid can be if it resolves. So I wonder if that incentivizes, like, the spell snares have basically no other good targets, but exactly the Defense Grid is maybe worthy of keeping him in. Does he have? Does Anuraag have like Disenchant or anything like that to actually?
Yeah, he has 1 Disenchant, which also he is bringing in.
Yeah, you definitely bring that in. Can randomly hit a sneak attack and maybe the grid.
So the way Dickmann's deck is set up, I don't think it looks like he did not sideboard very much. He took out 3 Lotus Petals for 2 Defense Grid and a Flusterstorm.
You take out the Lotus Petals because you expect the game to go long, so the fast mana
is exactly
not going to be especially relevant.
And plus, Versa pile of blasts and Flusterstorms, I don't think you can realistically hope to turbo Anuraag Boast board.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like Anuraag just bringing in 13 cards.
Maybe on turn 1 you can hope to do that, but I think it's just better to try a Defense Grid out.
Yeah. Like, drawing a Lotus Petal late is definitely a little bit awkward in these kind of games.
It's like a land that you can only use once.
Yeah. It's like a bad City of Traders. All right. So it does look like Spell Snare came out. Surgical Extraction's coming in, which is interesting. That's another one of those cards where, like, sometimes you could, like, randomly get them and it's, like, super insane, but, like, typically it doesn't seem like it'll be that great. It's not like they're Snapcasters or anything.
Yeah, I think it's just his reasoning was that it was better than the white cards.
Sure. But I think he cut a Plains, right? I'd probably want to land over Surgical.
Anuraag's deck has so many cantrips that I think he's okay just... Basic Plains doesn't cast your cantrips, which is the reason to side it out. Often, when he was playing Miracles, Basic Plains was one of the worst lands in the deck, especially in, like, the mirror, so I think he's probably using the same sort of logic.
Makes sense. So the 7s, they both look pretty good for both players. Dickmann's hand's like, he has the cards that he wants, but he can't do his combo especially quickly at this point. He has like the turn 3 show and tell with no defense, but he has the Brainstorm, so his hand could definitely improve quite a bit here. Do you think he turns Brainstorm to try to set up the turn 2?
I would guess he doesn't, but...
Yeah, it seems kind of wasteful.
Also, given that you expect the game. That's a really good preordain for Anuraag. It found the force which defends him from a turn 2 show.
Absolutely.
So for Brainstorm to be better, you have to hit exactly a soul land, I think.
Mhm.
And I think the likelihood is just not high enough.
Yeah, and then you also don't have any protection, so you're just like
Yeah.
hoping that the turn is good enough. Which, sometimes it is, but no reason to be unnecessarily aggressive when his hand's like pretty strong. The Cunning Wish offers some options. Maybe it
Brainstormed
seems like
into 3 lands again.
yeah, that's certainly unfortunate. I'm not sure if Dickmann can Cunning Wish for any protection. It looked like he brought in most of his counter spells, so I don't even know what
They
he would find.
sometimes have a Pact of Negation in their sideboard, but
I don't think
he doesn't. He doesn't. So the way his deck is set up, all of his protection is main.
Yeah, because he like brought in the Flusterstorm and everything.
Yep. Anuraag drawing mostly good cards.
Yeah, Preordain helps.
He did preordain into both Force and Brainstorming. He just left both on top, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, a second show and tell. Think we might start to see some fireworks. Like, I think you're supposed to just jam show and tell here because you have another one set up for the next turn.
You might want to, I don't know, you could maybe run out the Wish end of turn 3, end of Anuraag's turn, and like hope maybe that gets countered.
Yeah, but the problem is
he just doesn't have anything to find.
Dickmann knows that he has nothing to wish for.
Yeah.
And Anuraag might also deduce that.
Yeah. Yeah, leaving in like a 1-mana counterspell in the board seems like kind of nice.
The problem is there's only one 1-mana counterspell in his 75, I think, right? No, there's spells. Yeah.
He has
maybe
in the board or in the main other. It seems a little bit awkward, like boarding out one spell pierce for them, like for that exact line.
So interesting to note. Oh, this was Anuraag found Surgical. That's a huge draw.
Yeah, that's super.
That's almost going to KO the game by itself, I think.
Yeah, be able to answer the show and tells. Like, it just comes down to sneak attack at that point. Sneak attack's definitely much more.
I was about to say, if Anuraag drew exactly Surgical right here, it's a massive blowout.
Yeah.
And
it is.
Yeah, so he needs to draw one of his 3 sneak attacks and have it resolve. Plus, Anuraag gets all of the information of how Dickmann sideboarded, which is also not to be underestimated because you can figure out how many outs he has left
and play around those exact outs.
Yeah,
having information in Legacy is definitely super useful.
Yep. I mean, it's generally not worth spending a card to just look at their hand, but Gitaxian Probe is free. And here, Surgical got a card from his hand as well. So
yeah, which it's not always, but when it does, oh man, does it feel good?
That was just a ridiculous. That was probably the best draw in Anuraag's deck.
Yeah, like maybe he leads on Brainstorm and then finds a Surgical off that, and like some other good cards off the Brainstorm. But yeah, he could not have asked for much more out of that draw.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this game is almost over, but I mean, obviously he still has sneak attacks.
I've learned my lesson from calling games too early in the Legacy leagues, so we'll see how it goes. But I definitely agree with you that this is going to be pretty tough for him.
Although, interestingly, I think so. You notice how Dickmann has Island,
Volcanic.
Mm-hmm. There was a small amount of merit. Oh wait, I guess it wouldn't matter this turn. But if he somehow had a sneak attack in his hand, you would rather have a second red source in case if you drew a soul land.
Sure.
But here it's not relevant.
You'd have to draw 2.
But that might be in the future. It might be relevant.
Yeah.
Defense Grid is a little late and $1 short.
Yeah, it's not the worst though, because it's gonna
So the problem is Defense Grid is symmetrical.
Yeah.
So what happens if Dickmann casts Grid? Anuraag knows he drew Grid because it wasn't in his hand last turn, and so Anuraag could just slam Jace and start Fate Sealing.
Yeah, which is fine, but I think the Grid actually gives Dickmann a higher chance of winning the game because he has the ability to actually it's just more like his sneak attack resolves, right? And Anuraag's biggest defense is definitely his counter spells. So
good point. From Kluma 47, there is a Through the Breach in the sideboard to wish for.
Okay, definitely relevant.
So this it's not completely over yet, and I think Anuraag realizes that the breach is in the sideboard as well.
Yeah,
So you might actually see him force here.
Yeah. To be fair, like, I guess it's not actually that relevant, but breach is you prefer to do it like on your opponent's turn, which makes or the defense group would make that less likely to happen, but not especially relevant here.
Yeah, the other play you could see, as someone else pointed out, is you could just leave 3 up to force.
Yeah, that's an option, but then you're kind of restricted for the rest of the game,
Well,
right?
the reason to leave 3 up, I think, is that you can still activate your Stoneforge EOT to get the clock on.
Yeah, that's only relevant for like the first turn though.
Yep.
But the grid did resolve, so I think I'm pretty sure that's good for Dickmann.
It is good for Dickmann slightly. Because Anuraag just wants to lock the game up. Ooh, interesting. We shuffle on that Ponder. It was a Footistrand, a Jace, and something else that wasn't good, so it makes sense to shuffle there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Dickmann needs a good draw here. Interestingly, defense grid also means he can't EOT Cunning Wish because it would cost 3 more.
Yeah.
Which is not irrelevant as well.
That Spellpierce is a pretty sick draw. This Cunning Wish can definitely resolve.
So I wonder if we see a Wish right here.
Yeah, I think you have to. Like, otherwise you're just passing the turn, right? And what are you accomplishing?
He's passing.
Huh.
Oh, he's wishing at his end step.
Maybe to see if the Stoneforge got activated.
Yeah. Well, the problem is you have to pass priority first in your end step.
Yeah. So it's an interesting line. I guess there's not really any downsides. Maybe Anuraag like cracks the Scalding Turn like at the end of like main phase 2, and then he doesn't have 3 mana to pay for the Force of Will or something. I don't know.
I don't think there's any reason to crack the Scalding Turn ever.
No. It's definitely ambitious.
Huh. So actually, Dickmann is a soul land away from really forcing the breach through the Force of Will.
Yeah, Anuraag not drawing a 5th mana source there is pretty good for Dickmann.
Well, he shuffled off the Ponder because he didn't think the mana would be relevant. I wonder if that's going to come back to haunt him.
I can't say that I would have made a different decision because it doesn't seem like the 5th mana is going to be especially relevant, especially given that Anuraag knows like half of Dickmann's hand from the Surgical still. Yep. So the Spellpierce isn't like especially likely to be in Dickmann's hand at this point, but it is. So the 5th mana will be relevant. We got a main phase Brainstorm. Does not find another mana source. He does have the shuffle effect, so he can get. He doesn't really want to get rid of any of these cards. Like the counterspell is pretty expensive right now.
The Snapcasters are pretty bad versus defense grid, I think.
Yeah.
Which is why you saw him put both of them back.
Yeah. I might have kept one. I don't know what I put back there, though.
Yeah. So Dickmann needs to draw Soul Land, and it's going to be a lot harder for Anuraag to make any headway by that point.
Dickmann has a couple turns here, though. Like.
Yep. It's not the draw we wanted.
as previously discussed, drawing that second threat.
No, that's exactly not what you want.
Yeah, Dickmann probably has like 2 draw steps here.
Yep. Let's see, 5 damage, fetch. It means if it's Ancient Tomb he draws on the last turn, it's not going to be good enough.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is kind of sad. But Dickmann really has not drawn well.
No. Yeah. But this, especially Sneak and Show, is kind of susceptible to the poor draws because you have all those bad cards. Or,
Yeah. Cards. Yeah, it reminds me of people playtesting the Goryer's Vengeance deck in Modern.
Sure. Yeah, this is like a specific type of like counter or a combo deck, right? Yeah. We play the cards that are only good when you're actually winning. All right, so the Preordain, you find some counter spells. I don't know why you would keep any of them. I guess the Flusterstorm is definitely better.
The Flusterstorm, I think, is worth keeping. Yeah. If the game lasts one more turn, the Flusterstorm will be good.
Yeah,
so
fine. Did you keep that Force?
Nah, the second force is dead, essentially.
I don't think you should keep it.
And Anuraag wisely realizes that the reason to keep Flusterstorm is that it's actually good versus the opposing Spell Pierce.
Sure, absolutely. It's not especially good against like sneak attack though, unfortunately. Nope. Which isn't relevant here, but could have been. And it looks like Dickmann drew another Spell Pierce.
Oh, that's also not really what you want to draw. So
yeah, Dickmann had a lot of spots where he could have drawn like Brainstorm or Ponder and like been probably totally in the game, but it just never happened either of these two games.
I mean, he's still alive with City of Traders.
Yeah.
So actually, if we get Emrakul, I think Anuraag sacrifices everything except for the Stoneforge. Because you can sack the Germ and Barraskull.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a cute thing that's usually not very relevant.
Yeah. And it's pretty unlikely that Dickmann actually like closes out the game from that point prior to the Stoneforge just killing him. Because he'd be a 2. He'd have to draw like he can't draw another Through the Breach. I guess he could draw another Through the Breach because the Emrakul would shuffle.
Yeah.
His deck, so he'd have access to that and then like sneak attack. Maybe. Yep. All right.
It's going to be. Oh, we're spell piercing it. No,
might as well,
this is
right?
a good play.
Oh yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah.
Because he knows this is the last turn anyways. Wisely, Anuraag doesn't fight over the Brainstorm.
Yeah, definitely no reason to fight over that there. All right, let's see. City of Traders.
Force of Woe. One of the worst draws in the deck.
Yeah.
Wow. Right. That was Charlie lopsided of fair, but I'm not sure like Dickmann could have really done anything differently.
No, yeah, I think his decisions were fine. Like having a mole like he did was like kind of unfortunate, but is like he just didn't end up having like this was like I played Sneak and Show in the last Legacy League, and I felt like that was the issue with the deck where like you don't really get to make as many choices unless you're like casting your Brainstorms and Preordains. Like you don't seem to make as many choices as you do with like Delver or like something like the Solar Control decks.
Yeah, I actually thought there was a fairly likely chance you would play Sneak and Show again. So I picked a Reanimator.
Mm-hmm.
Despite I basically put down a spreadsheet what I thought people were likely to play. And Reanimator was good versus most of the decks. Then I just got 2 bug decks in my deck in my group instead, and I'm just like, that's not what I want at all.
Yeah, I just went to MTG Goldfish and found the sweetest looking Delver deck and played that. Yeah. That was my preparation.
That's a strong decision, especially for most Grand Prix as well, I think.
Yeah, Delver, I definitely like Delver decks. Always been a fan. Lands, I'm curious to see how the rest of these matches go, like the elimination matches after the.
Yeah, personally, I'm rooting for every degenerate deck to not be in my bracket whatsoever. Yeah, no, absolutely. Either they should 3-0 or they should not be in my bracket.
Sure, that makes total sense. All right, that was a pretty sweet. I would say that was like sweet matches, but like the games were a little bit lopsided there.
Yeah, the games are not great, honestly.
Yeah, those weren't. But I mean, luckily we have more sweet matches. Dickmann's going to play one more match against the Eternal Storm, which should be interesting.
The Epic Storm, actually.
Epic Storm. I don't know the difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a Storm deck with Rite of Flame and Burning Wish. Those are the salient features about it.
Okay.
I mean, further back into its history, it used to be 5-color with Gemstone, Mine, and Silence.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really not necessary to know the history of it anymore. It's just you can look at the deck and determine how it plays differently from the other Storm deck.
Sure. Or how it evolved maybe from an older list.
Yeah. Anuraag, he was under the assumption he would just hit his land drop. Well, you know what they say about assuming. Yeah. It's very dangerous. That's what they say.
He already got like the 1/6 surgical draw. Like, how could he expect that?
Yeah, that.
You only get 1 per match. Let's not be greedy. I don't know. I thought what do you think about the not forcing the defense grid? Because it makes, I don't know. It just seems awkward to me.
The problem
you have so many
at that point was that he didn't have another counter spell rolled up. I think if you have another counterspell rolled up for whatever, you'd snap off the force there.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
All right. So Dickmann's fighting for not to be last place, and I think that'll be based if Romario wins basically 2 of his matches or 3 of his matches. It has to be some combination of that.
Yeah, Romario could like 0-3, and then Dickmann could make it, or
Oh
Dickmann
yeah, I
beats
forgot. That's
Romario,
that's
right?
the weird like corner KC scenario as well.
Mm-hmm. But if Dickmann beats Romario,
And
and
then
Romario goes
if
1-2,
Dickmann beats Romario and Romario also goes 1-2, Dickman's also fine.
yes, yeah,
Due to how the tiebreakers work.
right. All right.
All right.
Well, I'm going to be done. That was my second round of commentary. Thank you, Jarvis, you for joining me with that commentary, and Rudy Brixa for the first one. But yeah, thank you guys, and hopefully you stick around for the last 2 matches. I'll see y'all later, or 4 matches.
Yep. Have a good one.
Peace out.